Ako po ay tumatakbong Pangulo ng bansa at aplikante ninyo.
Tinatanggap ko po ang inyong nominasyon sa akin bilang kandidato sa pagkapangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas.
Ang tamang pamumuno ay dapat pangunahan ng leadership by example. Hindi sa salita, kung hindi sa gawa.
I am today announcing my intention to run for the presidency of the Philippines in the upcoming May 2022 elections.
Inihahain ko ang aking sarili bilang kandidato sa pagkapangulo sa halalan ng 2022.
Former Senator Bongbong Marcos tops the list of preferred presidential bets. That's according to a survey conducted by the Octa Research Group. Out of the 1,200 respondents, 54% picked Marcos as their top choice for president. Trailing by a wide margin is Vice President Leni Robredo with 14% and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno with 12%.
President Duterte will only step down if any of his chosen successors take his place. Duterte says he prefers the likes of Senator Cheese Escudero or former Senator Bongbong Marcos and not Vice President Leni Robredo.
The president used the same words to describe former Senator Bongbong Marcos when asked if he would want to form an alliance with Lakas CMD.
No, I cannot because nandyan si Marcos. Hindi ako believe na he's really a weak leader.
Filipinos will be in a critical political crossroads in 2022 as they choose who gets to lead the country and govern for the next 6 years. How will Filipinos decide on their future? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. And welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. With us, of course, online. Well, we are mostly all online. Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Robbie Alampay of One News. Ladies and Robbie, happy weekend.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy New Year too. Okay, what news stories are we looking at? Of course, except for the New Year.
Sana nga mag-Happy New Year. Itong papasok na taon.
Yeah,
of course, we're also heading into 2022 na over the past 2 weeks, we're bracing ourselves for the full impact of Omicron. Makikita natin, and of course, we're expecting the festivities to carry on in the first week of January, and kung mayroong mga adjustments dyan sa mga protocols, lalong-lalo na sa mga LGUs.
Yes. And of course, we're also... Go ahead.
Yes.
Good, Ami.
It's an election year, syempre. Ang preoccupation natin ngayon, pagpasok ng taon, syempre politics na.
Yeah. Ito yung bungad ng... Although the campaign season only begins in February for national positions.
February.
Pero ilang buwan umaandar.
Yes. But yung...
Well, I think we're losing Lucci. We just lost Lucci. Okay, let's bring in our guests for tonight, our first batch of guests. We begin tonight with Professors Edmund Tayao, Ranjit Rai, and Tony Lavinia. Professors, thank you for joining us tonight. It's good to have you with us again.
Good evening, Professors.
Good evening. Happy Sunday naman.
New Year all.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. Well, of course, we've all seen the numbers, at least the numbers that have come out so far. And more or less, the numbers have been consistent as far as the surveys that have come out so far are concerned. More or less, pumapatak sa 50 mahigit yung survey numbers ni Bongbong Marcos with Leni Robredo as number 2 and so on down the line. Pero medyo malaki-laki rin ang agwat so far. I'd like to ask you first of all. Of course, it's only the end of the year. We have 5 months to go before election day. what do these initial numbers tell us, or what don't they tell us? Maybe that's more important nga. What don't they tell us yet? Maybe let's go clockwise. Professor Tayaw.
All right. Well, if we are going to base our analysis, no, in the previous elections, no, I'd like to think that this is the first time that the candidate, a few months before the D-Day, no, the election day itself, would breach the 50% mark.
Yes.
No. I hope that we can double check, no. But if I remember it right, the only time that a candidate led and won the election at the get-go was in 1998, no, when former President Erap Estrada ran for office, but he did not reach 50%, if I'm not mistaken. At best, he reached only about 45%, no, or 47, if I'm not mistaken. While former President Noynoy Aquino,
Ed, it's 49%, Ed.
All right.
49%. 49%. Yeah.
Yeah, but not 50%. No, former President Noynoy Aquino about the same level as that of former President Erap Estrada. No, but I'm inclined to think still that we're looking at the whole of January and February and March, no, as the critical period basically. Alam mo, yan yung medyo kakaiba sa klase ng ewan ko kung sistema pa din talagang matatawag, no? The election, the campaign period starts supposedly only next year, no? Pero sa totoo lang, medyo hindi naman talaga nasusunod yan ever since, no? But hindi pa din nabibigyan ng pansin yung issue na yan. In the first place, it's not even enough to campaign only with a given period of 90 days. No? So having said that, there's still so much that still could happen. But again, as I've said, the 50% mark is really, unprecedented, no? And ang laki ng agwat eh. So, unless some what's this unforeseen event happens, no? Wag naman sana yung disqualification case, talagang makikita natin na mahihirapan yung mga kalaban na umabot.
Professor Rai and Professor Lavinia, historically, so we're treating this as baseline for now. Kahit pa matagal na natin minamatsagan yung mga surveys, those were the numbers heading into the new year. But historically, how much in those numbers actually move? I mean, and by how much do they still move between January and May?
Well, based on our Tugon ng Masa survey, no, which we conducted last December 7 to 12, you'll notice I gave you some of the slides already. A small percentage of Filipino voters are still willing to change their vote. And something like almost 30% of those who responded to our survey said that they're still open to changing their vote. We also gave a slide there that shows the commitment to voting for certain candidates, no? And you'll notice that significant, the lead, the one thing that has come out of our survey, which is the latest survey for the country. We're waiting the SWS survey, which apparently is coming out very soon also. There is a definite frontrunner for president. That's former Senator Bongbong Marcos with 54%, as far as our survey is concerned, and a definite frontrunner for vice president at 50%. And when you look at Senator Marcos's vote, something like 14 to 15% are soft. Even with that number, if you take it out of his total, that's still a significant number, and will be a challenge for all the candidates who are. The nearest candidate is 40% down. VP Lenny Robredo has 14%, and Senator Marcos has 54%. The vice presidential race is a little closer. You have Inday Sara Duterte with 50% of the vote, and 33% for Senate President Tito Soto. Either way, the impression we all have is that there's a great consensus around not just Senator Marcos, but also the tandem, and the tandem is both the candidates for president and vice president are obviously helping each other here. No, their bailiwicks are adding to each other, and we're seeing that great consensus very early on, before the elections. Now, I agree with Prof. Tayaw. The one thing, one trend, no, in Philippine elections is that nobody has gotten over 50% of the vote. No, and the closest was, in fact, President Erap and the former President Benigno Aquino. But that might be broken, no. And one other important insight also, no, or note, is that only one tandem has actually won, no. That's GMA during her time and Noli De Castro.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from the look of it now, no, we might see all of those records broken, no, and so. But then it's still far away. I agree with everyone here. It's still too early to call in, no, and say that this is done. So much will change when the formal campaigning starts.
But in the
Okay,
meantime,
what will change particularly? I just want to know, when you say that the numbers now could still change, my first question is what can change them, heading into campaign period?
Mhm.
And how much change
Yeah, by how
can
much? Huh?
probably be realized by, say, the second and the third and the fourth candidates coming out now in the surveys?
Well, I have a slide there.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have a slide there that we can quickly flash and to answer your questions because it's quite technical, So no, there's another slide on Stable 2, which shows the likelihood of changing for president, and you'll notice that all candidates, all candidates have a so-called soft votes. No, I will definitely change. I will likely change. Even if you add the 50-50, you'll notice that candidate Marcos is a very strong base of support, no, and much of which, close to a significant more majority of which are likely to stay with him, no, and this is very different from the vote of VP Lenny, no, who's the closest competitor, and you'll notice her vote 50-50. I may or may not change is 37%, no, very big, no, and if you add all those numbers together, it's a significant vote that's uncertain also for her. And when you look at the other slides that we have, you'll notice that the number one preference, no, second preference is Isko Moreno. So given that dynamic, we don't know how this will turn out. And we have a strong front runner with a very solid base of support. Only 14% of his vote is likely to really change, so-called soft votes. And we have a second preference, no? A favored, no, a preference in Isko Moreno. So if there are candidates that are going to fall out in the midst of the race, it will be Mayor Isko who will be a significant beneficiary of this possible shift in votes. So this is what the data is showing. Of course, the dynamics will be very different in reality. So to answer your question, Lucci, that's how it looks. No? Each candidate has soft votes, but our front runner has a very strong base of support, and a significant number of his vote is committed already. So something like almost 70%. No? And so that's the story at the moment. Of course, these trends are not permanent. They will change. And I'm sure a lot of us are hoping that it will change. No? And we'll see, no, come January when the formal electoral process starts.
well, professors, ang tinatanong ngayon ng mga tao is what might be the reason for the strength of the Bongbong Marcos Sara Duterte Carpio tandem. Ano lang ba yon? Yung strategy lang yun na merong malakas na north, solid north, and meron siyang solid south? Or is it dahil nag-iisa na lang siya ngayon na candidate na pro-administration, is that a preference for continuity Kasi, or is it just nostalgia for, do people even remember the Marcos era? Or people want strong government? Di ba, President Duterte is supposed to have delivered strong government exactly. Maybe Professor Lavinia can
Yeah.
start the
It's
analysis.
it's it's probably all of that. Probably all of that. I mean, but I just want to stress lang na we actually don't have 5 months for the numbers to change. And I think historically, by the end of March, so that means really 3 months, 2 weeks. But discount the rest of the years. It's really just 3 months. 3 months when the numbers could change. In the last election, and Lucci played an important role for that, the numbers changed considerably after the second debate and the performance of
Yes.
President Duterte in that debate. I mean, and the numbers changed considerably, almost by 10, 15 points. I mean, towards him. Before that, he was still running third and fourth place, then really just jump ahead of the pack and never look back after that. I mean, so that's really important to know that the debates will matter, uh, and that will be the last chance, I think, for the other candidates to try to catch up. But I would also say it's more difficult this time, and I agree with both my colleagues here, Ed and Ranjit. The nature of the support of the tandem uh, uh, might make it more difficult to catch up. Doable, but might make it more difficult. And that's to answer your question now. I mean, about what makes a tandem strong. Well, literally, I mean, when you look at it, this is a combination of two groups of voters that also correspond to geographic regions that tend now to vote black. These are Marcos loyalists and Duterte loyalists. Even with Duterte, President Duterte's also criticisms against Marcos, his own obviously being upset that Sara did not run for president, that didn't affect the movement of the Duterte voters to the BBM voters. You know, before the filing of candidacies, before Sara withdrew, Marcos had a very low vote in Mindanao, but now I think it's even his biggest next to the Ilocos region, certainly bigger even than the balance of Luzon, you know, but obviously Ilocos is probably polling 80-90% there. But see that those are the two big block of voters that are 25 to 30% each. And so there's also the strategy then that the other candidates might want to look at. They have to peel away at least one of those blocks, and it will not be the Marcos loyalist block, right? They will stay with Marcos to the end. The only group of voters, big block of voters they have to sway are the Duterte voters, which means hard choices of the way. VP Leni can no longer be an anti-Duterte candidate. If she keeps on being anti-Duterte, she will not get those votes. That explains why Mayor Moreno has been trying to pivot, but so far unsuccessfully, on trying to support, to be more supportive of President Duterte. But theoretically, that's the best approach. You have to peel away, divide this unification of two big blocks of voters in the Philippines that also correspond to geographic regions, plus Metro Manilas. Metro Manila seems to be solidly with Marcos. I think Sara is being pulled up by Marcos in Metro Manila. But there you have a real chance for I think for Moreno and for Soto to get more of those votes from Metro Manila. But I think it's not about ideas. This is not about change or continuity, about authority, or about being pro Duterte or anti Duterte, or pro Marcos or anti Marcos. There's elements of that, but it's just these two big block of voters have come together. I have to say, the Marcos campaign.
But Dean Tony, what about in terms of messaging? What about in terms of content? What is the Marcos Duterte tandem doing right there, if any? Or are you going to say no? Actually,
It's the best
it's still just
campaign message, Roby, which is it's time for change, right? That we always know that
about
the change candidate wins, and And here, that's what they're saying. I mean, and sort of getting above the fray. Usually, that part about change, you only do that in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, but the Marcos campaign has really taken that on. And to be honest, it's a failure more of the other campaigns. The way I see it, everywhere I go, when I ask people why they're for Marcos, many say they don't even really know what Marcos stands for, but they really don't like the attacks, and that probably has to be rethought of by all the different
Yes, I was
people.
going to ask na how much of these, I don't want to use the word muckraking, but the fact that there are petitions for the disqualification or the cancellation of candidacy of Bongbong Marcos, also the fact that the president nga, charged him, let's just say even if he was not named, that he was the one being alluded to in that cocaine news. How much of that helped or detracted from the votes for him right
I
now?
think that's benefited him quite a lot. I mean, plus of course, we know very much also how good this social media operation of Marcos has been, and even the traditional media approach of Marcos has been no interviews, right? No interviews, no mistakes.
Yes.
That it's just perfect from a candidacy point of view, not necessarily for the country, not necessarily for deliberation of the campaign, but as a campaign, it's really very good. And it has to be matched. And that's my concern here. There's time to change this, but the other campaigns have to change. They have to
Mm.
pivot. They
Mm.
have to transform their campaigns, and they're not doing that as far as I could see.
And
Professor
Um,
Roy,
Professors, we just have to go into a break. I'm sorry, we have to go into a break for a quick while. So please stay with us while we have a gap. And welcome back to Chiefs. Still with us, our esteemed professors. We are talking about the 2022 elections. Let me start off with this. Professors, I did a quick looking up. The last time anybody hit numbers that are really that high was in 1977. Well, hindi nga lang sa election, but the presidential referendum.
Yeah.
But it was only candidate Ferdinand Marcos who was running, and he got 89.2% of the vote. Of course, it was a referendum; it was not really an election. But let me take it from there. If you look at all the numbers so far that we've been seeing dun sa mga surveys, mukhang sobrang substantial so far yung lead ni Bongbong Marcos. At even if you add up all the other numbers of the other presidentiables, mukha bang may pag-asa pang humabol? Even if you add up all the other numbers?
No one seemed to
Yeah, well,
be
Isa-isa.
inclined
Isa.
to let me
yeah,
get
based
back to
on our
some of
survey,
what
yeah, even if you add it up,
earlier. No? The earlier questions, if I'd like to get back on, no? Yung campaign kasi is just, to my mind, on the surface. No? A campaign is only as good as the narrative itself. And I'm sure, of course, that many of us would have looked at how voting behavior has been shaped in the past elections. And having mentioned the voting behavior, one thing is consistent with all the presidential elections. No, the vote is always a protest vote. A protest vote meaning it always contradicts the current situation, or meaning the situation where it appears to be popular, but or being made to be popular, but many actually are not inclined to support it. No? Yung lalo na kung pinipilit, o yung pilit na maging popular. Actually, while we'd like to think that former Senator Bongbong Marcos is the lone candidate identified to be pro-administration or with the administration, even before, even Senator Ping Lacson has already mentioned that he's not against the administration. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno also mentioned the same. Even Senator Manny Pacquiao, albeit of course that many of his initial pronouncements have been basically to attack the administration, but just the same, his messaging is such that he's supportive of the administration, and his all previous actions have been pro-administration. Kaya nga lumabas yung issue ng tawag dito, enabler na tinatawag ng mga purista na oposisyon. So having said that, the idea really is to send the message to the public that what is being offered is consistent with what has been offered in 2016, for example, even in 2010, which is what, a strong leadership and a no-nonsense, kind of leadership that a candidate spouses. Now, so in other words, even if your campaign is, or messaging for that matter, is very strong and you're using practically all available resources there, if the anchor of that campaign is not really that deep, medyo mahihirapan ka talaga. Makaka-recover pa ba? Sinagot na din kanina ni Dean Tony, na when the debate happens, that's when we can expect or somehow hope that there can be some change. Just recently, I asked a question about the Mandanas Garcia campaign in a debate, and no one of the candidates actually managed to answer that candidate. So, having said that, yung mga botante kasi nag-iisip yan, even if many would like to think hindi. So, let's see when the debate starts and if the numbers will still move, when the debate happens.
Professors, I think everybody's made that point about at this point, it is obviously Mr. Marcos's elections to lose at this point. And to that end, as frontrunner, parang he's not taking media interviews, wala siyang binabanatan. But in the coming months or even in the coming weeks, what will he find difficult to keep avoiding, and what might be the biggest mistake that he could run the risk of being goaded into?
Well, for me, I agree with my other panelists. There's a lot of continuity rather than change. That's as with many Philippine elections during the post-Marcos era, the weakness of political parties, the fact that our politics is not disciplined, as Dean Tony was saying, by ideas, platform, or vision. Personality politics is dominant, and that clan politics is still hegemonic. And while I agree that Senator Bongbong Marcos has appropriated the message of hope and change, a very positive campaign so far, and its ambiguity as far as his plans for the country is good tactics because he's not criticized for anything. I believe he's the candidate for continuity, and in a sense, his prevailing now is also a referendum on this administration. And I agree, in many respects, while the administration has been silent about an administration candidate, and that has been very helpful for certain candidates. There's no administration candidate. Everybody seems to be insulated from the travails and missteps of this current administration, and that doesn't seem to affect them. But it seems like I agree with Ami that the seeming administration candidate would be Mr. Marcos, largely also because his vice president is the daughter of the president. Now, intervening election dynamics can be unpredictable. I agree that maybe the debates might change it. Intervening events like the possible Omicron surge in the first quarter, the failure of the administration to deal with the impact of Odette on a big segment of the Visayas and Northern Mindanao, which, by the way, are these are areas where electoral votes are hotly contested. Might change the complexion of and the dynamics of people's voting behavior. Of course, the the last few months of the administration, if they're continuing issues about corruption and inability to deal with the COVID problem or provide solutions. I mean, all of these things might create what Professor Tayo is saying, a protest vote. There's a lack of a protest vote. We thought that the movement around Lenny would, emphasize that, amplify that. Right? Doesn't seem to be there. No, I mean, the movement is still being organized, and that's also the same thing I hear from many of my colleagues, no, observing this, no, that we're not just looking at Bongbong candidate or Bongbong Sara the candidate. We're looking at a movement na. It's not just two candidates from a coalition, no, or a part, of groups, organized around identity and political, no, affiliation with the administration, but really there's a strong social movement now supporting them, and that's what makes them formidable in that in my regard, in this regard, no, in my perspective. Now, if that move for Lenny can be amplified, organized, and made more coherent over the next few weeks, then maybe we might have we will see a different dynamic in the next few weeks also.
Pero Professor, nakakatulong din of course na he is the only one nga identified really with the administration, and there are so many non-administration candidates. You think it's possible na some of the candidates will still drop out and magkakaroon pa ng consolidation of forces just in case itong trend na to hindi matigil?
Yeah,
Well, I
that's,
think
that's possible. Yeah, that's very possible. Because that's exactly as Dean Tony was telling us last time in 2016. It wasn't just the debate performance; it was the breakdown of the campaigns of Grace Poe and Mayor Binay that led to these changes, no, in the election dynamics. No? So, we have to we have to look into this also. So there might be campaigns that might run out of resources or might decide to coalesce in last minute, and that will change the dynamic completely. So it could be a plus for the Marcos Sara Duterte tandem. It could also be a plus for the opposition, whoever that turns out to be in this particular campaign period.
What about Isko? Isko started out very strongly. I'm just wondering why he's now, well, I don't want to use the word languishing, no, but he's kind of like down to a very very low third, no. I mean, coming from where he was just before the filing of the candidacies, how would you evaluate his campaign so far, even though it's not yet campaign period? What do you think happened there?
I think that in essence, Richie, the opposition vote, or what Ranjit's called the protest vote, coalesce around VP Lenny. And so all of the votes that are anti-Duterte and anti-Marcos are, I think, now with VP Lenny. And the question is, hanggang dun lang ba yung anti-vote na yon? My suspicion is yes. Kung anti-vote lang, parang hanggang dun lang siya. Hindi na siya, maaaring meron pang iba, yung mga left halimbawa, di ba, na wala pa sa kay Lenny Camp, but that's, that's like what, 1%, 2%, or even less, no? So, and that's why for any of the opposition or non-Duterte, non-Marcos campaign to win, they have to grab and convert from those 50% plus that's already with Marcos now. Kaya yun ang sinasabi ko na kailangan mo siyang i-ano. And si Isko has been trying to do that now that he lost the opposition vote. I think pre-filing, he had some of the opposition vote kasi people thought that Lenny will not run. And that's why medyo running strong siya. Nung tumakbo na si Lenny, wala na yon. And his only chance was his own popularity vote, which is what I think he has now, depending on what you look at. Octa actually is not as bad as he is with the Pulse Asian. I mean, I think 10 or 12% siya. Dito sa Octa, 2 or 3 points behind lang siya kay Lenny. But what he needs and what he's trying to do is to get votes from the Duterte camp. Now, I want to address what Robbie was talking about the Marcos campaign, what to watch out for. I think two things. Obviously, the disqualification is like everything becomes tabula rasa after that, diba? If he's disqualified. But if he's qualified and it's done before election day, I think that will lead to Aimee running and Aimee winning even decisively because people will be angry if in fact he is disqualified. But if he's qualified after the elections, then we know it will be the VP that wins that will take over. And essentially, that's the legal questions there. But how he responds to a Comelec decision, um, to there'll be oral arguments probably in the Supreme Court. That's a big thing because that's a test of character. We saw that in the case of Grace Po, for example, and how the campaign were also running already and doing the campaign. They also had to defend themselves legally. And Marcos is going to be in that spot regardless of how the COMELEC first decides that. So babantayan natin yon. I mean, because people will watch out what's the character of the presidential candidates that's leading and now has been disqualified or might win in the COMELEC, but is now has to face the Supreme Court. And that's a big thing that will influence the way they also campaign. The other thing related to that is the Duterte. What will President Duterte do? We're not yet sure now. Will he actually endorse someone else, or will just stay out and eventually support Bongbong Marcos? That we don't know. But the reaction by the Marcos campaign on what Duterte will do, let's say Duterte will endorse Moreno, for example, which is what they have been hinting at, and which Moreno has been hinting at. How will Marcos react to that? Will he turn against Duterte? So far, he's been very smart. Doesn't attack Duterte, so he keeps the Duterte voters. And so that those are the two things we have to watch out for the Marcos campaign. But I have to say again that they are very smart. The group that's running the campaign of Marcos should not be underestimated. They really are professionals. They know what they're doing. They know their messaging. They know their strengths and they know their weaknesses. And to sort of ignore that means you're going to lose because you have underestimated them.
I think, Tony, I just want to seize on that. No, they had a very good description of the campaign of Bongbong Marcos. They're very disciplined. They're very on message. It's very clear, focused, professional, everything. How does that compare, and how does that frame what you see of the campaigns of, for example, Leni Robredo?
Well, Leni Robredo's campaign is volunteer-driven, as we know, right? I think our colleague John Neri has described it as a movement and has described the advantages and disadvantages of that. And the advantages is you can swell that to scale up the numbers very fast if you go out of your comfort zone. And that for me so far is the challenge from what I've seen. I mean, I see, for example, that in many of my own bubbles, it's Leni all the way. But they do not really get out of that bubble, and in particular, having any presence in barangays. If Bongbong wins this election, I actually think it will not be because they have vindicated the Marcos name, they have a better platform, etc. But what people are telling me, in my students, my colleagues in barangays, that there is no other candidate that they are hearing about in their barangays. Walang ibang kandidato, which is surprising for us, in the middle class. But even that, the middle class is so limited, as we've seen in the last two surveys, Pulse and Okta. ABC is also even more solidly with Bongbong Marcos than with other candidates. No? So a movement is good, but the movement needs to expand outside its comfort zone, which means you cannot be self-righteous. You cannot attack if you want to convert ISCO voters, you do not attack ISCO. If you want to convert Duterte voters to Lenny, you do not attack Duterte. That's really the basic thing at this point in the game. This is not about whether it's right or wrong to do it, but it's simply that it won't succeed. It won't succeed in converting votes. No? And the other thing, of course, with the movement is it lacks discipline, right? I mean, I don't know if you noticed this attack, this debate between the Lua de Guzman supporters and some of the Lenny supporters. That was ugly, really ugly by the Lenny supporters, particular, not many, but some, to attack a union organizer, a worker, for having a good meal with the family. You know, there were the children actually work abroad, and it's as if you're, it is very in very bad days. I'm sure Lenny and his people did not condone that. In fact, I saw some of them pull back. But with that lack of discipline in the movement, you'll have that kind of problems as you go along.
Professor Rai, Okta conducted a research survey. Is there an effort by Okta to find out why Bongbong Marcos is doing so well and why the non-administration candidates are languishing? They are languishing.
Yeah. First of all, Ami, it's controversial even to associate him as an administration candidate.
Yes.
It's an opinion by quite a number of people, but what he has skillfully done together with Mayor Sara is actually at least in public divorce themselves from the administration and
Itself later on, no? So about the campaign of Mayor Isko, simple lang yung explanation ko dyan. Too many cooks spoiled the broth. So that's all that I can say right now. Perhaps the candidates might want to go back to the many issues we've seen in 2021. Sa akin, tatlo lang yan. Una, yung wala pa rin nangyayari. Wala pa tayong nadidinig na masyadong development dito sa PDAF scam related to Napoles. We've heard that earlier on in February. So much issue has been about still ongoing communist or the so-called communist rebellion in the countryside. Maraming issue yan, including the budget. And third and last, the issue of decentralization, which is related not only to the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, but even with the sustenance or the sustainability of BARM. Yun lang.
Okay, Professor Edmond Tayo, Professor Ranjit Rai, and Professor Tony Lavinia, maraming salamat po for joining us tonight. And Happy New Year!
Thank you.
Salamat
Happy
po.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good New Year, everyone.
And that'll be all for this special edition of the Chiefs. We hope our discussion will keep the conversation going. Remember, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Madeline Gao.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Luchi Cruz Valdez from News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Happy New Year.